This is someone that when he was a freshman and got to Ole Miss was the guy and was one of the most impressive freshmen we have seen in a long time at that position in college football. There's really no history of Quinshon Judkins ever being somewhere and just not being that dude right away. So if the Browns, there's no getting him up to speed. He's a pretty pro-ready prospect. It's just a matter of, do they want to be slow ramping him up in terms of conditioning and things like that? But if you're asking me if he's a starting running back by October, I say absolutely yes.
Yeah, so good job there. Connor Rogers very high on Quinshon Judkins. You were very high on Quinshon Judkins as well, which is why I was allowed to draft him in round 12 of our league draft, but that's okay. He comes in at running back 11, Matthew, before his Europe matchup against the Vikings.
He's made the love list because the usage has been there, and he's looked great doing it. He's had 79% of the Browns' running back rushes since returning in week 2. Over the past 2 games, just 44 touches. This massive workload. And teams, running backs that get at least 15 or more rush attempts against those Vikings, they're averaging almost 19 fantasy points per game. So the Vikings, bottom 10 in rush yards allowed to opposing running backs. Quinshon Judkins in Dillon Gabriel's first start should have a heavy workload against the Vikings. He makes the love list right here. No Connor Rogers today, Jay Crouchers. He's still consoling himself about the Mets.
Another season-ending loss to the Marlins to blow a playoff spot. The third time that has happened in the past 20 years, specifically to the Miami Marlins, which is a tough scene. Not as tough as the scene for Quinshon Judkins. I think the fact that they were willing to give him such a heavy workload so soon is a huge indicator. It's not an amazing matchup against the Vikings, but at the same time, Kenneth Gainwell ran on this team.
That's what I'm saying.
So it's not the most frightening run defense in terms of personnel, and you expect it to be close enough that they won't lose game script.
He produced against the Packers. Yep. You can't tell me the Vikings are better than Judkins is there, and I do think he gets a heavy workload again, given the fact that it is the rookie's first start, Dillon Gabriel. So they're going to want to lean on the run. This is a home game. They're in Cleveland. So, yeah, I'm as a top 12 play this week. Quinshon Judkins makes the love list. Another guy that makes the love list, a little bit closer to my age, but Alvin Kamara still getting it done. It's mostly about the matchup here. I know that the passing game work hasn't been there for Kamara the way we would have hoped this year. He hasn't been the PPR cheat code that we've seen in previous years. That role seems to have gone more to Cris Olave this year, but he plays the New York Giants. You had me at New York Giants, Jay. They've allowed the 5th most fantasy points to opposing running backs, right? Kamara has at least 19 touches in 3 straight games, and only one team in the NFL gives up a higher yards per carry than the New York Football Giants.
Yeah, the Saints opened as favorites, as 1.5-point favorites, and then they got bet some more, up to 2.5-point favorites. I think the Saints, I don't think they're a great team by any stretch, but I do think they're a competent team. And I think that with the Giants, the issues that they have in terms of just the receiver room at the moment, Jackson Dart only making his 2nd start, I do think that the Saints, who have been close in 3 of their 4 games, will be able to keep it close enough for the run script to kick in and for Kamara to start getting into the end zone a little bit more. Question from Dylan Santana, 651. Should I start Judkins or Woody at one name now for Woody, like his Brazilian soccer player, Ronaldinho? I'm worried about Judkins being at a Europe game against the Vikings rush defense, while Woody is going against a pretty soft rush defense in Baltimore. I get that, but I just think that the guarantee or relative guarantee of workload for Judkins gives him the edge. Yeah,
we like Woody Marks quite a bit here. Everyone likes, it's interesting that you talk about Woody going against that soft run defense. But ultimately, while I do think Woody will be able to penetrate that soft defense.
That soft front.
Yeah, that soft front is better. I'm going with Quinshon Judkins here. I don't think I'm not worried about the Vikings run defense. Judkins has performed as well. We saw it from the clip from Connor. He's always been the best guy on the field. And so with the legal issues at least paused for a moment as that gets worked out, he's on the field. He's getting a big workload. Judkins would be my answer there as well. Back to Alvin Kamara against the Giants. It's a top 12 play this week. He's an RB1. Low-end RB1, but still an RB1.
You worried about Kendre Miller in the short to medium term?
No, I think they'll spell him with Kendre Miller. I do think Kendre Miller is an important person to roster. As we've seen it, just this week with all the injuries and, now Trey Benson is going to miss some time. Alvin Kamara, there's 2 scenarios actually 3, for Kendre Miller to get more playing time. Number 1, he just earns it. He's looked great. It looks kind of shot out of a cannon for an offense that needs a spark. Kendre Miller has provided that. There's also a chance that the Saints, who are, season has not gone the way that that the Saints or Jay Croucher would have hoped for New Orleans, given the amount of money you've bet on them. There's a chance that Kamara could be on the move and go to another team. It would just make sense given where the Saints are and where Kamara is in his career. And then finally, of course, there's always a chance that Kamara gets hurt. He has dealt with injuries throughout his career. So Kendre Miller, I do think, is an interesting guy. But no, do I think Kendre Miller cuts into Kamara's workload to an extent that we would care, that we would consider not starting him? I don't. Again, 19 or more touches in 3 straight games for Alvin Kamara.
Yep. You mentioned Quinshon Judkins was able to run on the Packers. Another guy who was Javonte Williams, who now I add him to the love list because he gets this very favorable matchup against the Jets defense. Hasn't been able to stop the run in 2 years. The Cowboys are 3-point favorites at the Meadowlands. And I think that this Cowboys offense, I think we just need to view it as an elite top-tier NFL offense. I think Dak Prescott has played as well as any player in the NFL through the first month. Javonte Williams is a beneficiary of that because he's getting in scoring position. And now he gets another soft Jets front. And I think that he will be able to get into the end zone. And there's just no real concerns about anyone else in the Dallas backfield taking work from him.
I completely agree. We always say this fantasy success comes from 2 things, opportunity and talent. The opportunity for Javonte Williams is massive, and I think there's still a little bit of question around the talent, but he's looked better this year. Javonte Williams has looked better against the Packers last week. So I like the call on Javonte Williams making your love list this week.
Yep. Another guy that we'll talk about perhaps a bit later in the Thursday night preview, but Kyren Williams, who it's been a bit of an uneven year for Kyren. Puka Nacua has just gobbled up so much of the oxygen on that offense, Devontae Adams as well. But I think Kyren will get right against the Niners run defense that certainly is going to suffer from the absence of Nick Bosa. I think Nick Bosa, his absence is just catastrophic for that defense overall. Everything kind of emanated from Bosa's presence. But the Niners...
And it's a short week.
A short week. Niners just got lit up by Travis Etienne. And I think that the Rams opened as 3.5-point favorites up to 6.5 because of all the Niners injury issues. I suspect they'll have game script. Blake Corum is a little bit concerning, but at the same time, expecting that Kyren will get at least 2/3 of the work there. Question from Alex Henderson, 321. Is Kyren for Ladd a bad dynasty trade? I need receivers and have deep running backs.
I don't think it is. I always prefer, in dynasty, wide receivers over running backs, just for the shelf life of those particular players. And I understand the question because of right now, Kyren's been fine and McConkey's been bad, but I'm not worried about the long-term prospects of Keenan Allen taking work away from Ladd McConkey. I am worried about Kyren Williams continuing to come on. So I actually don't think it's a bad trade. I think it's a good trade.
Yep.
I would prefer in dynasty. Again, it sort of depends on your goals because slow start for McConkey and Kyren's going to be fine. But just without knowing your team context, are you going for it or you're rebuilding this year? By the way, in dynasty, that's all you can do. You either need to always be, this is a year I'm going for it or this is a year I'm rebuilding. There's nothing worse than being like a 5th-place dynasty team.
Yep.
If you're middle in the pack, you're not winning and you need to be rebuilding, even if it seems weird. But I made the playoffs last year. Yeah, but if you're not there, if you can't get all the way there, rebuild.
Yep.
But anyway, so I prefer McConkey to Kyren long-term in dynasty.
Yep. Ultimately, with Ladd McConkey, it's been a rough 4 weeks, but he's still tethered to Justin Herbert as his quarterback. He's a high draft pick. He played at an absolutely elite level last year, so I think it's too early to be sounding the alarm too much on Ladd McConkey. Let's get to some others receiving votes, headlined by David Montgomery, who has had a pretty solid start to the season, highlighted by that epic game against the Ravens a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, last week, obviously a tough day at the office for Montgomery, but things are going to get a lot better this week at Cincinnati. Over the past 3 games, the Bengals allowing 151 rushing yards and 5.4 yards per carry to running backs. Lions are a 10-point favorite right now. We expect them to be able to run. But Gibbs and Montgomery are both top 20 plays for me this week. Obviously, you're starting Gibbs, but I'm back in on Monty. How about Woody Marks, who we just talked about? He's my running back 20, 86 utilization score in week 4. That was 12th best among all running backs. No team has allowed more fantasy points to opposing running backs than the Baltimore Ravens, than that soft Ravens front that Woody could easily penetrate. And then how about Isaiah Davis? We talked about this with Connor Rogers a couple of days ago after the Monday night game. We talked about it on Tuesday. But with Braylon Allen on IR with the MCL sprain, Isaiah Davis actually it's him and Breece Hall. And it was, believe it or not, it was not Breece Hall, but Isaiah Davis, who led the Jets last year in fantasy points per touch. In other words, he didn't get a ton of touches, but just when this kid touches the ball, good things happen. They like him there in New York. It's really just him and Breece Hall. This is an offense that we know with Justin Fields under center wants to run the ball and be effective. So I think Isaiah Davis, they don't want Breece Hall at the goal line.
No.
So when they get in close, it's either going to be a rushing attempt by Justin Fields or it's going to be Isaiah Davis. They play the Cowboys, and, we just saw Josh Jacobs run all over the Cowboys. They allowed the 6th most fantasy points for opposing running backs. Just, if you're desperate, I'm at running back 37. Let's not get crazy. But, if you're in a deep league, you're stuck because of buys, I do think he could potentially be a viable flex in a 12-team or deeper league.
Yep. Question from Simple Jack, hashtag FF Happy Hour. Should I trade Waddle and Pollard for Judkins and Woody Marks?
Yes.
Yes, you should.
Yeah, I think it's a fair trade. It's hard to know, obviously, without your scoring size, anything like that. But Waddle gets an uptick without Tyreek Hill. Tajay Spears, the window for him to return has opened. But Pollard, I would argue Pollard's probably it's him and Woody Marks are sort of close. But I prefer Judkins to Pollard moving forward. It's a fair trade is what I would say. But if you need the running back depth versus Waddle, who's kind of goes as Tua goes.
The other thing with Waddle is that, he gets an uptick. Like, he's been the clear alleged wide receiver 2 in that offense, and he just hasn't really done anything for 2 years. He's dealt with a lot of health issues. So I'm not sure that Jalen Waddle is just all of a sudden going to be like 10 catches a game type of guy. So I think that Quinshon Judkins is the best player in that trade. He's got the highest upside, and I'm not sure the gap between Pollard and Woody Marks is anything at all. Tajay Spears is going to come back and take touches away from Pollard as well.
Agreed.
Also with Isaiah Davis, agreed. This week, I think touchdown-dependent, desperation flex type of guy, but scope for him to be, if Breece Hall gets traded at some point, Breece Hall also an injury risk, then Isaiah Davis could be RB1 on a team that runs the ball more than any other in football.
1,000%.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.